There's days you're not going to want to show up. Motivation is going to wane. It's never a constant. Obsession can be a constant. The difference is people show up to things more regularly that are tied to their identity. If your identity is tied to this thing that I do every day, you show up to it because it's a part of who you are. When you're on a path of mastery, you're committed to showing up regardless. You're committed to the path of mastery, knowing that you'll never get there.
Damn.
Right? I think social media is great. I think technology is great. And also, it's created just a world where we have everything at our fingers. There's so many ways I can feel good right now that would normally I would have to do something to do. I can get all the dopamine I want by watching other people do it.
Yeah.
On my phone.
Eric URESK.
Yo.
What's up, dude?
Kicking it, man. Just happy to be here.
Yeah. Welcome back to the podcast. This is your second episode, and I appreciate you coming down. You're local here in San Diego, and I see you at the gym all the time, getting down. So that's awesome. So tell everybody, maybe if they haven't heard about you or haven't seen you yet on the podcast, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I am a former retired MMA fighter. I was a coach for some pretty high level MMA athletes for quite a while. Retired from that, moved into a personal performance and life coach. And so that's what I'm doing now. And just growing that out and having a good time expanding that business and working with different people and putting on some live events and all different kinds of exciting things. So yeah. It's been cool.
Yeah, really good at what you do. Can you talk about some of the fighters that you've coached?
Yeah, sure. So I've worked with Dominic Cruz. I've worked with Phil Davis. I've worked with Alex Gustafson way back in the past. Terry Brazier. I've had a good list of people from all over the planet. Jeremy Stevens was an athlete of mine. So Miles Jury, a lot of UFC vets, Bellator guys. Yep. One championship was an event that we biggest event in Asia. Had a women's world champion and won championships.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you train with Dean Lister, with Jocko, all these guys.
Dean Lister, Jocko. Yeah, I've gotten to train with the who's who. I mean, even early in my career, I was one of Randy Couture's fighters at his gym and got to train with everybody there. Vanderlei Silva, Vitor Belfort, Forrest Griffin, like everybody. It was a cool time.
That's cool. How much of that do you think has contributed to where you are now?
I think a tremendous amount.
Yeah.
I think being around that caliber of athlete and understanding the demand that it takes to show up, do this thing every day, and then that's not even good enough to get to the top. Like, there's got to be more.
Yeah.
Right. So the barrier for entry, and this is something that I took on as a coach. The barrier for entry to be an MMA fighter is that you show up twice a day. If you're going to be a professional fighter, your 2 training sessions a day are the bare minimum.
Right.
Now that's incredibly difficult to do for like the average person. If I asked you to get up and come to 2 of these like high level training sessions a day, they probably wouldn't make it past the first session, let alone 2, let alone do that for 5-6 days a week.
Yeah.
Right. So it's incredibly hard to show up twice a day and do that.
Yeah.
And it's still not enough.
Right. Is that on top of weightlifting and
It's not even that. It's all the other things. So yeah. So we'll say like the strength training would be considered maybe one of your training sessions, but it's the sleep that you're getting. It's the company that you're keeping so that you can maintain a focus, right? And I think that's the thing. It's the ability to maintain a focus. Sometimes you go do these training sessions and then you're checked out the rest of the time, focused on girls, which is a big problem for me when I was fighting. Like I was like, when I wasn't training, I was focused on a lot of other things.
Right.
And then I saw how that was really hurting me. And I would see that all over the place. Like anything that drives focus away from the objective of being the best.
Yeah.
And the guys that I saw that were the best had the ability to maintain their focus even outside the gym.
Right. Well, you have to be obsessed with it, right? With anything I feel like you're going to do great with, I feel like have to be obsessed and have to be all in on that one thing, especially if you want to be the best, you can't be doing anything else.
Yeah. And it's really subtle and it's really sneaky because there's so many people that if you looked at the way that they devoted their life to training, you'd be like, oh my God, this guy is obsessed. But there's levels to that obsession. Like Dominic Cruz was one of my training partners, and I ended up coaching him towards the end of my coaching career. And his level of obsession, particularly during like his title run years, was something that you never seen before.
Crazy.
Yeah. Crazy.
Like what? What did that look like?
It would look like, let's say there's a training session going on, and Dom maybe got caught with something during the training session. First of all, Dom is not afraid to get caught with things in training. He was obsessed about going towards his vulnerabilities as opposed to running away
Meaning
from
getting
his
caught with like a punch or a kick.
Caught or punch,
Not caught with like.
Yeah. To
So
clarify.
I know some people are
yeah,
like,
for sure.
What did he get caught
He
with?
would not be afraid to lose in practice.
Okay.
If something did give him trouble in practice, he would keep the person that gave him trouble at practice, maybe for an hour after the practice is over, to go over the thing to make sure it never happened again, right? If you ever saw how he got guillotined by Uriah Faber in his first title fight for WEC, that never happened again.
Yeah.
Right? Dom became impossible to guillotine after that because that happened to him. It would be things like if we were doing some sort of endurance challenge. I remember one time we were having a plank challenge as part of the physical conditioning that we did with our strength and conditioning coach. Me and Dom are the last two guys there, and we're like at 7-8 minutes holding a plank, and I just know Dom's cheating and doing all kinds of, he's not holding a strict plank, but he will not let me win.
Yeah.
And I recognized that, and I was like, and this could have been some mental weakness on my part. I'm like, I'm just going to give it to him.
Right.
Because I know he's so fucking crazy.
Yeah.
There was no way he was letting me get out of there beating him in a challenge like that.
So when you see how a guy who's at the top of the top, like Dominic Cruz, how they go through their training regimen and how they treat the gym, what do you see in compared to like business or other forms of life? Like, does that that kind of mentality and work ethic translate to other things? Or is it specific to fighting?
Well, I think it does. It does in a way. If you have a supreme focus on anything, right? So focus would be your energy and your attention.
Yeah.
Okay. And you put those two things together towards a common goal, and you are persistent and consistent towards that thing, you're going to have success.
Right.
Some degree of success,
Mm-hmm.
right? Talent comes in. If you have talent on top of that, you might be even more successful, right? Some people have freakish talent, and they're these outliers that nobody knows how they got where they are.
Right.
But what does happen with that, and this is why I have a job, is that focus leads to breakdowns in a lot of other areas of life.
Yeah.
Right? And at some point in time, when people get tired of these breakdowns happening, usually not till like their mid-30s to 40s, then they have to start taking a look at other things.
Right.
Why am I unhappy that I've had this singular drive and focus towards this one thing, and I'm, my relationships are trash, or I feel lonely all the time, or I don't know if I have real friends, or I mean, I'm sure you've heard all these stories before.
Of course.
Right. So yes, you can be absolutely that singular focus, your energy and intention, driving towards something. Yeah, it's going to help you be great at anything.
Got it.
But it may not be always the best thing for a well-rounded life. And there's seasons to all this stuff too, which is the other part.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we talked about like how earlier in your career when you were fighting, that was your life, and maybe you chased the girls and you did those kind of other things. But now you had mentioned that, look, when to call it, like when to slow down during the day so that you can show up in other portions of your life. So in terms of like time discipline and things like that, what do you do? How do you make sure that you're showing up everywhere you need to in the right amount? Okay,
so that's a great question. So that stuff, in my experience, doesn't happen by accident. It happens by intention. Okay. So with my intention, it's really important for me to decide, looking at my day, what's important. Okay. So that sometimes starts the night before. Looking at my day the next day, what energy do I need to step the next day into? Is there anything unresolved from today that I don't want to bring into tomorrow?
Right.
So that I can be clear moving into my day with all my faculties with me.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I don't always do that perfect. Sometimes there's stress that comes with me into the next day, and it invades my morning, and it can sidebar me from hitting my meditation, my journaling practice, the things that I use to get grounded before I go out into my day.
Right.
That being said, when I'm, provided I'm on the ball with this stuff, I'm looking at my day, what needs to be handled, how do I want to be during that thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who do I want to be during that thing? Do I want to be motivated? Do I want to be uplifted? Do I want to be tired? Do I want to be looking at my watch saying, I can't wait till this is over?
Yeah.
Okay, so decide who I want to be. What is it going to take for me to be that? And then I get to prioritize my energy. So if I have, let's say, okay, the only time I have today to train is this morning. So I can hit the 10 a.m. training this morning, and then I'm going to have clients from, let's say, 1 to 4 or 1 to 5. So that'll be a couple of back-to-back calls. If I kill myself, if I go do nothing but spar hard rounds during training, I'm going to be pretty fucked by the time my calls roll around.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll be more in a recovery state than a state of giving energy to people.
Right.
So I have to decide, what does this training session look like that is going to take care of my need to take care of my body and also be able to show up for my clients.
Right.
What kind of nutrition am I going to need? Will I need a quick rest before that? Right. Do I want to drink too much coffee too early in the day where I'm skidded out and my energy levels are going to crash later on?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. So these are all things that I need to put into, and again, it's not, because I'm practiced at it, it's not this long drawn out math problem now.
Yeah.
It's quick math in my head at this point because I'm practiced at it.
But you built the muscle. So your morning routine, it sounds like that's the foundation of all of this. So for somebody who maybe doesn't have a great morning routine, if you're coaching somebody or you're talking to somebody who is maybe in their early 20s and they're trying to get their shit together, how do you put together a good morning routine to set yourself up for that day? Yeah.
So I think morning routine for me is important. I think a lot of content creators are like ODing on like I've seen like some psychotic morning routines where like, I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
I don't want that. And Alex Hormozi's funny. He says like, you can be a millionaire, and he's right. Like if your focus is on money, you don't necessarily need a morning routine. Why a morning routine is important for me, my presence to like, and the energy that I'm going to show up with each day is really important to me.
Right.
I don't think that happens accidentally.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for me to be intentional about getting grounded first before I just jump into the momentum of the day.
Right.
Right. If let's say I get up and I'm stressed or I'm worried about something, right?
Yeah.
A relationship dynamic, a business problem, and I just start my day caught up in the momentum of stress. Now I'm reacting to that stress, whether I'm conscious of it or not, in all my behaviors. Maybe I'm checked out on my phone where I could be getting something productive done instead, or having, quality time with my wife in the morning before I have a bunch of work to do and we may not see each other till later on.
Right.
Right. So grounding to first myself and to what's important before I go out into the day. It's like, if you've got like a big deal going on, right, a big business deal, you're probably going to have a few meetings before the deal to get centered on like a plan of attack, if you will.
Right.
Okay. And then you may even have a debrief after to see what worked and what didn't work.
Yep.
Right. Most successful business happens in such a way. It's not accidental or just, we just stumbled into this deal.
Right.
Often there's some thought that has to go into it first. What do I want to get out of this? How do I want to show up to this thing? Do I want to project strength? Do I want to project weakness?
Right.
It's really important.
That's, I think I struggle with my morning routine sometimes. I wake up and and I used to not be so good about this. Like before I met my girlfriend, not that she brought a lot of amazing grounding to my life, but when I didn't have much else going on other than business and that was it. So I would journal every night. I would wake up. I wouldn't touch my phone for the first hour when I wake up, and the same thing going to bed. Last hour, no phone, no light from a TV, nothing like that, right? And I showed up a lot more than I did when I had other things going on because my routine changed. So yeah, I got to get my routine down a little more and make sure that I'm preparing for the day, because that's been a weakness of mine. And, part of it is just showing up, right? Because showing up is like half of it for me.
For sure.
But how you show up, I think, is super important. So when you're working so you work pretty closely with guys like Jocko Willink. With Jocko's military background, being a SEAL and being a SEAL commander, so he's, a good leader. What do you see from like his military side of things that lead in the gym? Is it similar to that obsession or that discipline, meaning?
His consistency is one. right? So, I mean, I know for a fact, I've trained the SEALs and combatives before, and a lot of their training is just consistency, like doing these boring things. Like the way they tactically clear a room, they have to practice all the little things to almost to a point that seems redundant. Like,
right.
It's like, why are we doing it? But they recognize that frequency is really important to them. And so Jocko's life is about consistency, and that consistency is rooted in discipline. Like, it's really hard to have consistency without discipline.
Right.
Show up every day. Consistency has nothing to do with whether you feel good or don't feel good.
Yeah.
Right. Neither does discipline.
Yeah.
So you show up and do the thing, and that what that is, and that goes past the military. I mean, I know guys that were SEALs that are not disciplined at all. It goes to when you're on a path of mastery, right? You're committed to showing up regardless. You're committed to the path of mastery, knowing that you'll never get there.
Damn.
Right.
Okay.
And it's like that's what jiu-jitsu is for me to this day. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm 42 years old. My highly competitive days are over. At least that's what I'm choosing to have it that way. Right. I don't feel the need to, but I'm still obsessed with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Still obsessed. I study film and tape all day long. I really don't make any money off martial arts. I mean, I teach a couple of classes for fun.
Yeah.
A week. I teach like 4 classes a week at Victory.
Yep.
It's fulfilling to me in a way that a lot of other things are not. And so I continue to do it, but it's not profit driven. And the amount of time that I spend on furthering my knowledge about jiu-jitsu is not necessarily profit driven, other than I just really enjoy the pursuit of mastery.
Right. Yeah. So now, okay, so you mentioned that discipline is the big thing for Jocko. Now, when you look at somebody who is obsessed, and this is like their lifeblood, like, any UFC fighter that's crazy and obsessed like that, like Dom, do you think that Dom shows up, or people like him show up because they want to, where there's a difference? You get what I'm saying? Like, do you think it's that? I'm trying to figure out how to word this.
Want to versus have to?
Yeah, like, well, discipline. You're choosing a goal and you're showing up because you're gonna hit that goal. You may not feel like it, but sometimes when you're super motivated and this is your real passion, like your life meaning almost, you show up because you want to. Like, that's the thing that drives you. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Well, there's both, right? So no
like
matter
a crackhead
what,
doesn't have to be disciplined to smoke crack.
No, absolutely. No, for sure. So yeah, I think it's actually an interesting way that you're framing it. I think at a certain point, there's days where no matter what, no matter how motivated you are, there's days you're not going to want to show up.
Right.
Body's beat up. You're fucked up from training all week.
Yep.
I got to go back to the gym.
Yeah.
Right. They show up anyway. They don't want to. They show up. Because motivation is going to wane. It's like it's never a constant. It's not a constant. Obsession can be a constant. And I think the difference is people show up to things more regularly that are tied to their identity. Like, if your identity is tied to this thing that I do every day, you show up to it because it's a part of who you are.
Yes.
Right. So for me, it's not even a question. Am I going to do something to take care of my body today? Right. Which is usually training of some sort. Right.
Yeah.
It's not a question because it's a part of who I am. It's a part of who I tell myself. It's part of my story and my script about who I am.
Yeah.
Right. That's different for everybody. That's why, like, if you ever read like a book like Atomic Habits, they talk about that. Like, making something part of your identity is the most surefire way to make it become a habit.
Well, this leads me to something, and you just gave me an aha moment, because when people want to quit smoking, they want to become somebody who doesn't smoke, but they don't think that they are not a smoker, right? So let me just say that again, because I know it may have confused people. If you're a smoker and you choose to quit smoking, you have to believe that you are no longer a smoker. And the problem is, and for me, when I smoked cigarettes when I was, 18, 19 years old, I tried to quit smoking, but it wasn't until I realized I'm no longer a smoker. So what you said about tying these to your identity, I think is so important, because when I got sober, and I know you have a similar story, when I got sober, I was no longer a person that drank. There was no, and people ask me, oh, isn't it hard? Isn't it? Not for me, because I am not a person who drinks, and I genuinely changed who I believe I am on a foundational level. And I think that if you can tap into that, your life changes. So
Absolutely.
In your coaching, because you do a lot of one-on-one coaching, how, if somebody's trying to tackle a problem, how do you get them to make that identification in themselves and change that?
That's a good question. So somebody comes to me with, this is where I'm at, this is where I want to be. Okay. So it's kind of what we said in the beginning. There's where I am, there's where I want to be, and there's the space that's in between that, right? Which I call the gap, right? The gap between me and who I want to become or what I want. So it's a lot of times they're thinking about what I want, but what I'm thinking is, who do you have to become to be the guy that has that?
Got it.
Okay. So we start taking a look at who you're currently being. Are you a guy that shows up late to things regularly, right? Are you a guy that doesn't keep to his commitments?
Yep.
Okay. Well, if you want to become this, we have to start working on the things. Like, we have to, like, one by one, start changing these things or shifting these things and moving into the guy that shows up regularly, the guy that has consistency. That's the guy that gets results in the gym.
Right.
Okay. So if I was a personal trainer, we would work on those things: the consistency, the importance that you place on this one particular goal, right? The person that has it in their head, as you said, that I'm the fat person. Well, it's not just they're the fat person. They've got a lot of other habits that came along that created the excess body fat that they have on their body. Right. And then, so sometimes it's just a simple thing of fixing behaviors, right? So these behaviors are not going to get you where you want to go. When the behavior is showing some stubbornness and it's like they're trying to, and they keep self-sabotaging, right? So self-sabotage has more to do with the deep subconscious limiting belief systems than laziness.
Yes,
right. Laziness to me is actually like a symptom of some deeper stuff.
Yep.
More often than not, people that are lazy, they don't have a sense of importance to the thing, or they have a lot of limiting belief systems of why they can't do the thing in the first place.
Right.
And so it's easier to just be lazy, which is like kind of like a way of avoidance.
Yes.
Than to actually move after the thing itself.
Right.
So
would you say that laziness is self-sabotage?
Yeah, a lot of times I think so. I'd say laziness is definitely a form of self-sabotage. It can be a symptom of not having clarity in what you actually want in your life.
Right.
It can be knowing what you want and not thinking that you can do it, or having a bunch of reasons of why you can't do it, and it seems so overwhelming. Why get started?
Yeah.
Right. And it's a momentum thing, right? Laziness is often a momentum thing. It's, the concept of inertia, right? So a body in motion stays in motion, right? A body in stillness stays in stillness. Once getting the thing moving, you have to go through that initial pain period. Right. A lot of people are not willing to go through the initial pain period. If I'm going to go from non-motion, right, stillness into motion to create momentum, there is going to be a painful process of getting that ball moving, right, getting that dead weight moving.
Yeah.
Once the dead weight tips over to the other side and starts to create motion for itself, and now the ball is moving with a lot less effort needed on my part, that's when it becomes a little bit more enjoyable.
So do you think that the reason why people don't start a lot of the times to get that difficult part without seeing results is it instant gratification?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think unfortunately, I think social media is great. I think technology is great. And also it's created just a world where we have everything at our fingers, and it's too much choice. It's like, it's a couple things. There's too much choice.
Yeah.
So with too much choice, it's hard to be clear on what I want.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I spend more time doing this than going, where if my choice is narrow, like I want that and I'm going to move that way.
Yeah.
Right. Really simple. And also instant gratification. Like there's so many ways I can feel good right now. I can get all the dopamine I want that would normally I would have to do something to do by watching other people do it. Right. On my phone. And so once that dopamine is dried up, well, so is my drive to do things, right? And so, man, a lot of us waste a lot of dopamine on a daily basis, and it destroys productivity.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a society where everything is right here on the phone. I mean, you want, And you don't realize it until you're somewhere where Uber doesn't work, you know,
sure.
like you want to go somewhere from point A to point B. Like I was in New York during a storm, right? And there was price surge and not a lot of drivers out. And I needed to go somewhere right away. And I realized, holy shit, like we have all of this stuff that we don't realize is right here, whether it's travel, whether it's porn, whether it's food, DoorDash. You don't even have to leave your house and you're going to have a cheeseburger show up. You know, I mean, I just think of how much of our lives are made better because of this, because when you need something, it's there. But how much are we robbing ourselves?
Well, dude, I'll put it to you like this. So you and I were talking about perennial pastures before, like you were like asking me about where I get my meat, right?
Yeah.
And so perennial pastures is this great regenerative farming location. So they farm all their stuff as close to as natural as possible. So it's completely grass-fed meat. The animals live a great life. And then so the product that you're getting is really great. I go get my meat from those guys at the farmer's market, right? So I'm having a direct interaction with the person responsible for me getting my food or the soap that I may get there or some of the produce or the flowers that my wife likes to buy at the farmer's market. It is such a different experience buying directly from the person that made the thing.
Yeah.
There's a relationship and there's a eye-to-eye transaction. Thank you for this value. Here's showing me giving you my money, showing that I value you. And I go home and I'm like, man, I feel really connected to my food versus when I go to Sprouts, which I love Sprouts. It's great.
Yeah.
But I don't, it's like, it's just this, there's no personality to it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm friendly with the cashier because I see them often enough, but that's it. It's way different than having that interaction. So I think all this convenience is actually a killer, and it kills the human connection. I think that shit is so important. It's really one of the foundations of my coaching, which may sound weird. It's like my mentor used to say this all the time. The quality of my life is based off the quality of my relationships.
Yes.
Okay. I have an opportunity to create relationships all day long. Now, if I'm secluded in this phone and there's nothing like human contact, nothing like human contact, and like face-to-face being with somebody in that, because there's an energy exchange that happens.
Right.
That doesn't happen via text.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I like in-person podcasts.
Dude,
and I hate the Zoom ones.
Yeah. It's not the same to me.
Yeah.
There's a real value to that.
Right.
And I think if we start cutting out the amount of human connection that we need or that we have available to us, I think it's really, really dangerous.
Well, COVID showed us how terrible lack of human connection is. I mean, I am a firm believer that the lockdowns caused way more
for sure
stress and suicide and depression and all of that stuff by cutting out relationships. And there's a study called, I think it was called the Harvard study, and it was Harvard University. It's one of the longest running studies. It was over 100 years. They followed people from birth to death, and they would see, what is it that, because they noticed that, well, there's some people who eat healthy, do everything right, live a great life, no poverty, no, whatever, right? And they die of a heart attack at 50 years old. And then there's people who are alcoholics who grew up in the projects in South Boston or East Boston and lived their whole life super rough, but for some reason they made it to 95 years old and they were happy. And they figured out that it was long-term human connection, like long-term friendships. Yeah. And I just get a little like almost tingly just thinking about that, because when I think about the things that make me feel so like wholesome, it's my long-term friendships and business partnerships and whatever it is, So do you see that as common?
Yeah. I mean, it's that you just said it. Literally you just said it, right? So the ability to be in relation with people, like loneliness does so many things. It kills me when they'll say died of natural causes, was seemingly healthy. Like, why? Because he had low body fat percentage.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Not having a low body fat percentage is not the end all be all marker for health, and like no other. Man, loneliness is if you're lonely for a sustained period of time, you are not healthy.
Yeah. Right.
I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Yeah. If you are lonely for a sustained period of time or experience regular loneliness, you are not healthy.
Right.
That is much different than chosen solitude.
Yes.
A man that can choose to move into solitude is not lonely. He actually has the ability to be with himself in a way that in relationship with himself. That's way different than isolation.
Dude, you just said something that, again, made something click for me, because when I said before my girlfriend, I was completely alone. But I was the most happy I'd ever been which led me to meeting the girl of my dreams. But, you know, I and it's funny that you say that because I've always thought about that. I was always alone. Like I had friends, I did stuff, but for the most part, I was either sleeping or I was here in the office working. But there was something about choosing to be there and choosing to work on myself, like journaling and just my routine and stuff. Yeah. So can you just say that quote again? A man that chooses
So I didn't have a
solitude?
quote there. I just said what I said.
It is a quote of yours now. We're
Maybe
gonna
it'll
put
be
your
a
name
quote now.
next
Yeah.
to it.
So a man that chooses solitude is much different than a man who just feels loneliness is happening against your will. When you're lonely, you want connection.
Right.
That's why it's loneliness. There's a resistance to the being alone.
Right.
Or feeling alone. Connection would be the opposite to that. I can be in connection and be by myself. That would be solitude, right? And that's a choice. I recommend all men take time for solitude.
Yeah.
Which is far different than I'm getting away from people.
Yeah.
Right. That whole mentality. It's always a red flag for me. If you choose solitude.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that at all. I think every man needs solitude. I think it's important that daily, if you can take an hour to yourself, I think all the better. But weekly, I think each man needs to meet himself with a couple of hours of solitude. Like make the time for that shit.
Right. You know what's funny is sometimes when I'm feeling like I'm in a rut, I'll literally, and this is changing because I got a baby coming and life's going to change, but I will literally tell my girlfriend, hey, I need to take like 2 or 3 days. I get on a plane, I go to New York City, which people are like, you go to New York City to relax? But yeah, because it's so chaotic. But go to New York, get off, go stay in Manhattan or Brooklyn or wherever I'm going to stay. And then I just go walk around and eat pizza and just do stuff by myself. But it's like I'm surrounded by people, but I'm by myself. I'm in my own
I get
zone.
it, dude. I love solo travel.
Yeah?
Yeah. When I lived in Phuket, I would often have to leave for visa runs. So every 3 months I'd have to go leave the country and come back for my visa.
Yep.
And man, I used to spend a lot of time in Kuala Lumpur, which is in Malaysia, and places like Siem Reap in Cambodia. And it would just be, I would really, really look forward to it. Or like if I would have to go fly to another country for a fight, then, you know, I'd like to take the afternoons to myself. Like my real joy is just going someplace that has really nice coffee, getting myself a really nice cup of coffee, a pen and a pad, or a book, and I don't need anything else. Like
nice.
That's the happiest that I can be.
That's cool. Yeah, it's funny because we seem to chase all of these things like cars and money and stuff, and you know, oftentimes when people arrive to this place where they think they should arrive, they realize all the shit that I like to do is not to do with money or Ferraris or houses or whatever, you know. Yeah. So going back to the loneliness part, you know, you kind of split the difference between somebody choosing loneliness versus it being pushed on them. Now, do you think that comes down to like our tribalism, like where humans came from? Because back in the day, if you got ostracized from your community, you're fucked. Like you get pushed out, you're screwed. You're going to go die in the woods, most likely, right? Do you think that is why loneliness kills people, like down to like a primal instinct?
I think that's definitely a part of it. I think we are social creatures. So whatever biological settings or hormonal settings are put in place that have that be the case of why we require connection. Yeah. We require connection.
Right.
Right. For sure. There's like, I could pretty much feel like that's a fact. I don't feel like it's an opinion. We require connection.
Right.
For many different reasons, right? One could be, very much that. We get pushed out to the side and would very much die on our own. But also, there's other things that happen. You know, there's the joy of doing something together is really like of partnership, of team, of going through hard things together.
Right.
It's not just like, if you think about it, think about some of the harder times in your life that you have shared with other people, hard experiences that you've shared with other people. And then think about when you come out on the other side, it probably might have even sucked while you were going through it.
Right.
You and the people that went through that will fondly look back at those times as some of the best times of your life often.
Yeah,
right. That shared struggle is what it like creates a bond with people. It's a feeling like I went through this with people. I mean, It happens with war veterans all the time. It happens with teammates, people that train jiu-jitsu together, you know, all different types of people. A lot of people that I've gone through, like some of the tougher emotional work that I've done in groups.
Yeah.
Me and those people that went through that together, we're fucking like family. You know what I mean? Like super, super tight because we went through this hard thing together. I think there's something that happens. You know, it could be some hormonal thing that happens.
Yeah.
You know, from going through that, but it's definitely an experience that I've had.
Yeah. Well, I guess it doesn't matter why it works if it works, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think it's interesting to figure out why that is, but it's less important to me why that is than how that is. Right. And because the how is really what I want to take a look at, because the how is how I can guide somebody or even myself to correcting something that's not working.
Yeah. So I want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to talk about, because I'm a big proponent of getting people into jiu-jitsu. I know there's a lot of people that are thinking about getting into jiu-jitsu. I try to get, Carlos can attest. I try everybody that comes in here. I'm like, hey, you should try a class. I don't know. I just hope somebody gets into it. But if somebody's thinking about jiu-jitsu, what should they expect? How do they pick a gym? What tips do you have for somebody thinking about jiu-jitsu?
Okay. So, yeah, when you're going into a gym, do they pay attention to the white belts, right? Do they have a beginner's program, right? If you go to a class and you're a beginner and you're just kind of left to the side, you can get better at that if you're just a naturally good athlete. Eventually over time you're going to get better. But yeah, you want to go to a place where there's some priority placed on you.
Yeah.
At least on your growth and your development. I think that's important, and not all gyms do that. We have a beginners program now, just to really, because beginners require different things than people that are a little bit farther along in their journey.
And it's intimidating for
white belts dude, too. It's for me, my journey was different. I came from a heavy wrestling background. Yeah. Starting jiu-jitsu was not hard for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It's just walked in and was beating people up from wrestling. And
yeah.
It was so it's different than somebody that didn't have that and is getting beat up and they don't have. And I also had a relationship with violence, so it was fine for me. If you're starting a martial art, you don't have a relationship with violence and you're going into this thing, I could very much understand how that would be scary.
Right.
So understand that you're taking this thing on for the reasons that you're taking it on, whether you want to learn how to defend yourself, you want to be more physically confident. I think, man, and I think that's it's kind of not answering your question, but I think it's an important point. I actually did a poll recently asking women how much do you want to feel safe with your man in the midst of danger? Do you want the man that you're with, is it important to you that he can create calm in the face of danger, that he has a relationship with either violence or danger, right? Doesn't mean you have to like violence, right? Doesn't mean that you even have to like danger, but you have a relationship with it enough that you can be a source of safety when in the face of danger. 100% of the women said that was important to them.
Right.
Now, when I walk around San Diego, I see evidence to the opposite because there's a lot of very passive, fragile men, particularly where I live in North Park.
Yeah.
And I think it's a thing in California, largely speaking.
Yeah.
And not that jiu-jitsu is a fix-all for that.
Right.
But it will confront you with doing something hard regularly. It will confront you with failure regularly. And it's really important to do something hard and to fail at things regularly. Right. Because it builds up my ability to persist. Right. And that's so important. I think it's the reason why divorce rates are so high. People don't persist through difficult things. Now, of course, if there's physical abuse present or something like that, get out of the relationship. That shit's done, right? But if it's just neither of us know how to communicate, and the persistence would be we need to learn how to communicate our difficult emotions as we move through this process so that we can strengthen our relationship. Right. Dude, that's going to be necessary in a romantic relationship. That's going to be necessary in a business relationship. Yep. When you get into a partnership with somebody and it makes business sense, then you guys got to learn how to coexist and get along and make this partnership work. Right. Right. So that you don't leave fucking mortal enemies or one trying to fuck the other over. Right. So jiu-jitsu to me is just a way to get familiar with persistence. I don't care. Is it the only way? No, absolutely not. Right. There's a bunch of different ways. You want it to be hard. Yeah. You want it to be something that sometimes you don't want to push through it, but you do anyway.
Yep.
Sometimes you even don't push through it. And then you got to go home and reflect, why didn't I push through that?
Yeah.
That didn't feel good. Tomorrow I want to come back and push through where I failed or I stopped today.
Right.
And I don't think there's enough of that in people's lives. I think people are sheltered from it. I definitely see people shelter their kids from that.
Yeah.
I know a few good parents that really walk their children through adversity in a way that I think is really healthy, but shielding anybody from adversity for long periods of time is actually hurting them. You are making them weaker. You're making them fragile. There is nothing noble about being fragile.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Fragile means I cannot handle difficulty or hard things. Now, I don't wish hard things upon you just for the sake of wishing hard things upon you, right? But I think it's a pretty general fact of life that there are going to be times that are hard, and the ability to persist through that is important. The alternative, I can't handle this, so I'm going to blame the thing that's hard for being hard and want somebody to come fix it for me because it's not fair.
Right.
And so you literally breed a victim mentality when you shield people from difficulty.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that this whole thing is, it started with participation trophies.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think that's my first jiu-jitsu tournament, I got smoked. I still, because the bracket was so small, ended up getting a trophy. And I literally threw it in the trash and I remember somebody, like my girlfriend was like, no, take it. Like, absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. Why do I deserve a trophy for getting smoked? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I shouldn't get some kind of dopamine hit just for the hell of it, just because I showed up, mm-hmm. which, look, showing up is important, I think, but the feeling that I got in my next tournament when I did much better, and my next tournament when I fucking did way better, that is like something that's earned that nobody can give you, So I have a daughter on the way, and I think constantly, like, when she comes, like, how am I going to be that caring person but still give her challenges, and when I have a son, give him challenges
absolutely
to overcome, right?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite subjects, like, in the world.
Yeah.
Because I had the opposite. I had every mistake that I made was catastrophized. You're wrong, you're bad, right? Much worse language than that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was terrified to make mistakes.
Right.
Terrified to take a risk, to take a chance, right? If I didn't know I was going to, and it was coupled with a natural talent I can be good at a lot of things.
Yeah.
So it was easy for me to kind of, I can just be naturally good at this thing, and I'll just do this instead of this. Then when it came time where even the thing that I was good at, somebody was better, I would fucking break because I didn't know how to, like, have the healthy competition, because I looked at that as just another opportunity to fail. And then that was going to reinforce all those beliefs I had about making mistakes and failing.
Right.
I think it's generally, a woman can do this, but I think it's the father's job to walk the young people into danger lovingly. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, I love you and I'm right here and I'm going to support you while we go into this thing, and you can do it. And even if you don't do it, I still love you. We're just going to keep practicing until we get it right.
Right. Yeah.
And, like, that to me is how we create that for people.
Right.
Like, hey, even though you didn't get a medal this time, it's okay. And I still love you. We're just going to keep trying.
Yeah.
That's loving guidance into difficulty and challenge.
Yeah.
Not, well, here, you deserve a trophy. I used to have to tell this to fighters many, many times, and this happened to me. I would train so hard in the fullest capacity of what I knew to train hard, right? With everything I had available to me and the knowledge at the time, I did everything I could, and I would still fail.
Yeah.
And I would feel ripped off and hurt, like, because I trained this hard, I should have won. Okay? That is called entitlement.
Yeah.
What I had to start, and I learned from that, I'm like, man, that's a dangerous, dangerous mindset to have, that just because I worked hard and did X, Y, Z, that I'm entitled to the outcome that I want.
Yeah.
And what I had to change my mindset, and I was really big on this as a coach. Just because you do everything possible, you cross every T, you dot every I, does not mean you're entitled to win.
Yes.
All you are doing is putting yourself in the best position possible to have your best performance possible.
Yep.
That doesn't have anything to do with the result. We don't actually control the result.
Right.
Right. Once we're in there, the things happen, the result comes out.
Yeah.
I'm sure many of us listening have worked tirelessly on business projects that have failed.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't deserve the business to work because you worked hard. If your business doesn't provide a value to people, then you don't deserve anything.
Right.
If your marketing projects to push this product out there didn't work, well, now you have feedback that you're not reaching people in a way that's effective.
Right.
You don't deserve anything.
Yeah.
Right. What you deserve to be loved just because like you're here and you're making an effort. Cool. Like, we love you no matter what.
Yeah.
But you don't deserve any of these other things, any of these results. They have to be, it's the persistence, right? If I persist, I will get the thing. I'm still not entitled to it.
Right. And then as you level up, things get, I mean, you start to kind of, the higher you get in experience with these kind of difficulties, the more, not only difficulties, but like, so for instance, my first tournament, I got smoked by a 17-year-old kid and by two people that I should have beaten, right? Like, I physically was there, mentally didn't show up. The next tournament, I got better. I did way better, right? And seeing that difference between the two made me want to show up another one and put in and do the same work and then figure out what else I missed. And you and I had a really important conversation before my either third or fourth tournament that helped me see some things. And then I killed it, right? Like 9 out of 11 matches I won. And just, I know that every single time that I compete, there's going to be ups and downs, but losing sucks, but it feels so good to like get back and win the next one.
Yeah. Like, man, don't rob people the opportunity to overcome.
Yeah.
It's like, it's one of the greatest joys, like in our story. I think, like, we look at like the hero's journey. I think that's a natural human archetype that it just happens.
Yeah.
No matter what, you go out, you leave the safety, you go on this mission, you fail, you run into adversity, and maybe you don't meet the adversity every time, and then you figure out how to overcome. That's one of the greatest parts of the human spirit. Everybody loves a fucking comeback story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So why are we like trying to shield people from the ability to overcome and come back and deal with hard things?
Yeah.
Like, that's so important. It's what gives it creates character.
Yeah.
It's man, it's really confusing to me sometimes, like the thought process.
Cut that part out.
The thought process that goes into some of this stuff.
Right.
And the thing is, I don't think there is a thought process. I think when this stuff happens, people are acting off an unconscious automatic of just survival. And survival, there's not a lot of thinking when you're in survival.
Yes.
Right? You're just reacting to the stimulus and, I don't want my baby to cry.
Yeah.
Even though maybe they need to cry.
Yeah.
Maybe they need to cry, and then they need you to help them work through the thing as they cry. And maybe that would actually be better for them in the long run than you just protecting them from crying.
Yeah. Right. That's amazing. So this kind of leads me to something that you had mentioned earlier, is taking risks.
Yeah.
I think that taking risks is so important, because if you take enough risks, now this is to a point, right? Like, don't go running a motorcycle at 200 miles an hour on the wrong side of the freeway. But what do you think about taking risks in terms of business and also like your personal life?
Well, put it to you like this. How many people do you know get hurt in a relationship? I'm never going to give anybody a chance ever again.
I did that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, I understand that. It makes sense. I'm going to protect myself from this hurt. I never want to feel this hurt again. I'm also guarding myself from ever experiencing any of the positives again.
Right.
Okay. Any of the good things that would come out of exposing myself to a relationship.
Yeah.
So that's just a way to put it into, to kind of crystallize it into an image. If I want something that I've never had before, it will require me to leave what I've currently been doing.
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever is familiar is going to feel safe. What you're currently doing now probably didn't feel safe at one time. I'm assuming there was some change from fucking 18-year-old drunk Kevin.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To where you're to 31 now.
Yeah.
Yeah. To 31-year-old successful Kevin.
Yeah.
Right. Who's got this nice little empire that he's building here.
Yeah.
That requires risk.
Yeah.
Okay. I get why people don't want to take risks, right? They value comfort.
Yep.
Okay. And security over the unknown.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's so weird because I see so many people that their comfort zone is actually way more uncomfortable than if they took the risk to go get the thing they really want.
That's familiar.
Yeah, but like, why somebody works a job that they hate, 9 to 5, they go to it, right? And they hate it. They're miserable. It's nothing to do with their passion. They have a shitty boss. They have, okay, just needed to see if he's like, no,
yeah.
No, but I mean, somebody that hates their circumstances, they hate their partner, they hate the car they drive, they hate the way their body looks, but they don't make any change. It's like, if you risked it and you lost it all, like let's say you wanted to start a company or go get a better job. If that job doesn't work out, you can always resort back to where you were. Like, it's so easy to fall. It's not like you're going to lose that mediocre ass life. So if you're working with somebody that's dealing with that, how do you challenge? Like,
okay, cool. Yeah. So that's a great question. So when somebody's in that predicament, right? They're in a situation they either hate or they're really unhappy in, but they do nothing about it. Right. Like, they won't invest in themselves at all. They're scared to even spend money to move themselves into a better place.
Right.
Okay. One, they far value comfort over anything else. Mm-hmm. Comfort, security, predictability, right. Familiarity.
Yes.
Okay. Those things, those psychological needs, when they're overvalued over stepping into the unknown, over exploring a future, like the unknown that could be, your a possible future reality.
Right.
Very hard to move somebody out of that place. And they also don't believe that it can they don't believe in themselves.
Yes.
Like, I think that's the other thing. They don't see the possibility.
Mm.
When I work with a client and I tell them my price, the ones that believe in themselves and they just know they need help and this is where I'm going to get the help.
Yeah.
They throw the card down quick, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they pay and on we go into our journey. Yep. The ones that really struggle are the ones that are scared to bet on themselves. And sometimes they do. Sometimes it takes a little bit of, like, hey, I get it. Like, yeah. I used to be scared to invest $300.
Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah. Really, like that would make my asshole fucking like tighten up to like spend $300 on something that's not just going to make me feel good in the moment.
Yeah.
Right. Which is the other thing that we talked about, right? Is the instant gratification.
Right.
Right. It's way easier to just avoid now than go through that initial discomfort, make the investment, the time investment, and move into these new set of behaviors to go get the information necessary to transform my life. Right. But it's going to require risk.
Yeah.
It's going to require risk. If you're scared to make the risk, here's what I can tell you. Gain more skills until you have more confidence in yourself, right? Maybe now is not the time to make the investment. Maybe the investment is gaining the skills necessary to be able to make the jump. Maybe you hate your job right now and you have this dream that you want to go do this other thing and you're having a hard time. Okay, maybe you don't quit your job right now. Maybe what you need to do is go acquire the skills until you know that you're so good that you're undeniable. And like when I was leaving coaching MMA, it was fucking scary. And it kind of didn't happen. Like I left here to go take a job in Thailand, right? I got offered the head coaching job at Tiger Muay Thai in Phuket, biggest fight gym in the world, in Asia at the time.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting ready to go. I get sick from the from the government prescribed medicines, just so you guys don't get flagged.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
And I don't want to take the second one. So I'm like, okay, I can't go to Asia now. I literally just gave up all my stuff, right? But I knew I wanted to do this other thing.
Right.
What I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
Okay. And I knew my skills were already in such a place that I was ready to take the risk.
Right.
Had I not believed in my skills to do this thing, I would have just gone back to teaching classes to get by. Right. But I knew my skills. I had been honing my skills, my ability to connect with, motivate people and move them, move them in beyond what they think possible for them.
Right.
I knew I could do that already.
Well, you're limiting risk on your own, right?
Yeah.
So like again, another aha moment, but when I moved out to California, right, everybody looked at me like I was fucking crazy. And I get it, right? I left a job making 6 figures, a good sales job, financial products in Boston, right? I moved out here with no plan, but I knew I could sell. I knew how to build relationships, and I knew I don't know what I'm going to sell. I don't know what product or service, but if I figure that out, I'll be fine. I know people will do business with me because I've been doing this for years. I've been doing all of it. So why don't I just go do that for myself and make, a lot more money? And it took time and it took risk and it was scary and it didn't work out. But because I took that risk and because I pushed off that instant gratification for so long, now I'm here and trying to continue to take risks and continue to grow and do that again, and, it's funny because sometimes that comfort zone creeps in. Money's good. I'm not in survival. Right. And survival was, I think, the thing that pushed me to get to where I am. But now it's like, I don't have to work. I do the podcast because I really enjoy it and want to build my brand. But, yeah, I don't know. What do you think the next step is for somebody that's doing well but wants to hit that next level?
Well, then it's about what fulfills you, right? And you and I had this conversation the other day, right? About, I don't know, is it public that you're in the...
No.
Okay.
We'll cut that out. Yeah, thank you. Okay. I appreciate that. Yeah. No.
Just ask that question again.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I've got some exciting stuff coming up, some good stuff. I'm not talking about it yet for certain reasons, but yeah, and I appreciate that. Yeah. Little foreshadowing for the future.
Well, just think about like what fulfills me.
Yep.
That's what it is. We all just want to be fulfilled, right?
Yep.
I think the reason people get on the path to money in the first place is that's the first thing that looks like, well, if I have this, I have access to things that are fulfilling me. When I'm fucking broke, it's like, man, money definitely doesn't buy happiness, like for sure. But being broke and living on the skin of your ass is not fun, man.
Yep.
Living in poverty is not fun. And not knowing how your rent is going to get paid, that's not fun. It's really hard to put energy into things that are meaningful when you're in survival. So I'm not one of those guys that's like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just get over the fact that I get it. There's deeper psychological things at play when somebody's in a long-lasting survival mode and they're just naturally not cut out to go out on an adventure like you did, for whatever reason, right? Maybe they have 3 kids already and they're like, well, how am I going to take care of these kids? And I get all that, right? I'm super sympathetic to that. Doesn't mean it's impossible. Doesn't mean they can't build skills to make themselves more valuable to then pursue, right? That's usually what needs to happen. You had cultivated the skills to go out and you had confidence in those skills to go do this thing.
Right.
Then you did this thing and you're like, well, what else?
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. And so it's like, you go do the things that are meaningful to you. Okay. And a lot of times what people find is the same thing that we just talked about, service and relationships. Mm-hmm. Like, how do I have an effect? How do I have an impact? How do I support people? How can I maybe show some other young kid who's got the same hunger, dream as mine? Maybe I can mentor people, right? Like there's all kinds of cool things that people could do. It's about finding what's meaningful to you.
Right.
I think, and that's like one of the things I really pride myself on is the ability to help anybody get clear on what a meaningful life would look like. So when they feel stuck, it's just looking at all the moving parts, seeing what's not working and seeing where the gaps are. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then just, not me telling them what the answer is for them, but them coming to their own answer through the work that we do together. Right.
Yeah. Because it seems like the answer is already inside of you. You're the key to unlocking that, which makes it so much better because it's not like you're on this search outside of yourself. It's always like in here, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's look, coaching works one of 2 ways. If you're getting a business coach, right, they got to tell you what to do because you don't know what to do. Yeah. Right. The answer is not inside of you but they can't tell you what you want to do. Yeah. Right. Like you got to figure out what you want to do, and then somebody can teach you how to do that. Yeah. Right. So I can often support people into figuring out what they want to do, and the answer comes from them, and then show them how to do that.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we worked together on before one of my tournaments, after our first podcast that we did, I was getting ready to compete, and you and I talked on the phone, and I'll never forget where I was exactly the moment we said this, but you had me go through this feeling of when I was a child, right? Because that, I guess, lays an impact on, lays a foundation to your future. But you made me look at things from a different perspective that sometimes I'll go through like a guided meditation where like I'm hanging out with younger me, right? And I try to understand where my insecurities were, where my fears were, and like how that impacts me now. When you're doing coaching, how much of that is focused? I mean, do you see a big portion of people's adulthood stemming from childhood? Is it everything? Is it?
Yeah, it's a lot. So it's funny. I was talking with a business coach the other day, and we're talking about like hard currencies versus soft currencies.
Mm-hmm.
Like hard currency is, if you work with me, you're gonna lose this much weight, right? And like, so I'll take you from here to here, and the hard currency is the 10 pounds that you lost.
Yeah.
This type of work is a soft currency. It's not necessarily measurable. Like we can't measure it on a scale. But oftentimes what people find is in their pursuit of hard currencies, I want to make this much money, right? That's a hard currency. They have to do the soft currency work, right? The stuff that's kind of can't be measured other than, oh, this belief that used to be controlling me and sabotaging me or stopping me is no longer the thing that keeps me from doing what I want to do, right? Look, you and I could come up with the perfect plan, right? Anybody can. Let's say you told me, man, I want to drop 10 pounds of body fat.
Yep.
You could go on the internet right now. You could get a pretty good fucking plan for free.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe you have to spend a couple $100, but probably not. You could probably get a pretty good plan that would work. You could get the weightlifting plan and the diet advice for free if you just do a little bit of work.
Yeah.
Okay? So you've got the goal. I want to lose the 10 pounds. You've got the plan. And then you keep stopping at the same point over and over and over again. It's not the goal and it's not the plan. You've got the plan as perfect. If you follow the fucking plan, you will lose the 10 pounds.
Right.
Right? So then people get really frustrated with people like that. Like, oh, he just doesn't want it bad enough and all that things. It's like, nah, there's usually something deeper at play.
Right.
Right? Now, it's your responsibility to discover what that is and move beyond it, right? So you're not a victim because you have these things that are keeping you. You had some early experiences that made you afraid to make mistakes or tighten up in competition.
Yeah.
But you are responsible to uncover what that is and then move beyond it. That is your duty to move beyond your limiting factors.
Yeah. The subconscious mind it blows me away because it controls everything. We're on autopilot most of the day, right? Dude.
People respond mostly to how they're feeling in anything. Even if you're a fairly logical person. I've seen studies that are conservatively at like 75% up to like 95% that a person's actions are largely dictated off their emotions.
Right.
Like overwhelmingly so.
Yeah. So let's talk about the subconscious mind and the law of attraction. Like, where do you stand on that? I have my own stance, but what do you think?
So I think very much as you become the thing, you move in line with it, okay? And like, so as I'm taking actions, right, aligned actions, and I become the thing, I start to show up more regularly, I start to align with a frequency that I definitely think moves me closer to the thing.
Right.
What happens is, though, if you have a nagging, let's say you have this fucking anxiety that's coming in every day around relationships.
Yeah.
Okay? And you don't do anything about that, no matter who you attract into your life, like that anxiety around relationships is not going anywhere. You're not going to fucking vibe your way out of it. You've got some work to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes sometimes you have some inner work to do before you can actually align with some energy or frequency. And as hippie as that shit sounds, I actually do believe in it, and I think there is some truth to some of that stuff for sure. Like my energy, dude, when my energy is up, and like let's say my energy's up, I'm feeling great about what I'm doing. I get a new client, I start getting a bunch at the same time.
Yeah.
Like it comes in waves.
Yeah.
Right. And then maybe my attitude slips a little bit, and I get in a little bit of scarcity. It's like, oh, I can't attract any new business to fucking save my life. So like. I think the same thing is with if you've ever been a single guy, right?
Yes.
And you're out there, like. Sometimes when you're on, like, dude, you're just getting well, you don't have to get numbers anymore, but back in the day, you used to have to get phone numbers.
Yeah,
like
getting
when you went
Instagrams
out.
now.
Yeah, you get Instagrams, but like you would be pulling girls left and right, and then you go on a little bit of a drought, and it would be, that's the game, right?
Yeah.
I really believe that it has a lot to do with the energy that a person's walking in.
Yeah.
Some of the things where people get stuck and they haven't been able to call something in, there's some work that they need to do to become the person that can call that in.
Yeah. So if somebody's trying to manifest something, like if somebody comes to you and they go, Eric, I want to manifest $1 million, where do you start?
Well, okay, like what are you going to do? what are you going to do to provide value to create that $1 million? Like there's some steps that have to happen first.
Yeah.
It's not just going to, like, a frequency is not just going to shoot it at me. I don't think. Maybe it's possible.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
What I know how to do is, like, okay,
well, when you learn, let me know.
Yeah. We'll do it together and make some money. But here you are, like I said in the beginning, here's what you want. What's the space in the middle?
Yep.
Right. And then who do I have to become in order to have that?
Yeah.
And honestly, that sort of develops over time too, and it changes over time, and it's a discovery. Like, you keep becoming and shifting and seeing where your limitations are holding you back. So I used to be the way I used to coach, and I was still very good. It's like, I have a gift for seeing what's missing from a person.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I would overly focus on what's missing with the person.
Right.
And I would be very focused on what they should be doing, right? What's not there, what's not happening.
Right.
And so, and even in corners, I think this was a weakness of mine. No, don't do that. Right.
Like fight corners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now they're focused on, no, don't do that. Instead of put your hands up.
Yeah.
Right. Move your feet. Or, as opposed to, hey, you're not moving your feet. No, like, oh, fuck, I'm not moving my feet, right? It throws them into a state of, like, negative constriction. They're focusing on what's not going right as opposed to what they want to create.
Yeah.
I shifted out of that into the way that I talk to people now. So I do my best to stay. So even before you were saying, I should have beat those guys, right?
Yeah.
What I'm thinking in my head is, you could have beat those guys.
Okay.
Right. So should is focusing on a deficit of focusing on what's not there.
Yeah.
Right. Could focuses on the possibility. Right.
Man, and that's just like the way that we talk to ourselves.
And see how it feels, right? So
Yeah.
if you were to say that in your own mind, in your head,
Yeah.
I should have beat those guys.
Yeah.
Right. And then say, I could have beat those guys.
Yeah.
See how that feels for you.
Yeah.
And like what the experience is of saying each of those.
Yeah.
And just notice the difference.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mark England from Enlifted Coaches. This is one of his methods, and it's fucking amazing. I can't say enough about it.
Dude, that's incredible. And I was trained when I was becoming a sales trainer for this company that I worked for when I had a job. They taught us to, when we're training our sales reps, like people that are, that we're managing, to do build, break, build. So like if a new sales guy went into a business, we sold products business to business, and the guy, it just didn't work out, whatever. It's like, instead of being like, hey, you should have done this different, they taught us to train them like, hey, you did really good with this, like pointing out something good. This could use some work, and this is where maybe you could have done this differently, but going forward, like, you did great. Let's just work, and I think that that's super important to also just keep morale high, right?
Yeah. Well, think about, like, if you're Matt's side and I'm coaching you in class, and all I'm doing is focusing on what you're not doing right.
Yeah.
That's going to be discouraging possibly after a little while.
Yeah.
Even just energetically, it doesn't feel good. They call like that type of is called conflict language. It creates conflict even within yourself. Architect language builds things. Right.
Yes.
And so using architect language like could, right, creates possibility. There's something to build off of that, as opposed to what's not there. You can't build something based off what's not there.
Right. Wow. Damn, dude. Yeah. You really see things from a different level. Like, it's back to jiu-jitsu for a minute. Do you think that as you're going through the belt promotions and as you're getting better and better, do you think that there's spiritual paths that you go up? Like, I've noticed that, and maybe it's just experience or life experience, but through jiu-jitsu, going from white belt to one stripe to two to blue belt and progressing, I feel like I change spiritually, like, as I get better.
So I think it's possible. I don't think it's inherent, right? So look, I was actually writing about this today. Growth or wisdom is not just something that happens with time, right? And so you could look at your path of jiu-jitsu as passes with time, right? But it happens with intention. Okay. So your intention to learning and growth will provide you bigger opportunities for learning and growth.
Yeah.
And your intention to grow I would say, without knowing anything else, that because your intention is to grow, you're starting to see things from a deeper level. You're starting to pull the lessons out of your jiu-jitsu journey and bring them into your regular life. That happens by intention. It can happen by accident to to varying degrees for sure. Like you have like aha moments that you didn't intend on doing, but it's because you're open to seeing these things that you're seeing them.
Right.
If you just were going to jiu-jitsu to fucking learn how to fuck people up,
yeah,
then you're going to learn how to fuck people up, but you may miss out on all the jewels that are hidden in there.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'd say because you're open to it and that's your creation. It's not,
right.
It's not guaranteed. Look, there's a lot of assholes in jiu-jitsu too, right? There are.
A lot of assholes everywhere.
There's a lot of assholes everywhere. That's the thing, right? So it doesn't foolproof you from being an asshole.
Yep.
If you're intentional about using it as a tool, it can bulletproof you from being an asshole because of the humility that is required to reflectively fail, learn, repeat, right? Like somebody that wants to grow in jiu-jitsu,
yeah,
if you want to maximize your growth, I think it's important to expose yourself to failure to see what works. It's important to expose your vulnerabilities and turn them into strengths.
Yeah.
Now, you could come from a mentality of I just want to win all the time. So they just do what they're good at.
Yeah.
Right. And eventually that instant
right?
gratification, because their ego cannot handle the long-term path for growth that requires failure, that requires you to go home and be like, man, am I even good at jiu-jitsu?
Right.
Right. Dude, sometimes I have that, like, I'll go home like, man, I fucking suck today.
Yeah.
And like, I'll like get down on myself, but I've done it enough to know it's just part of the process and I will come back stronger and et cetera, et cetera. There are guys out there that will not expose their weaknesses and they're usually not fun to train with.
Yeah.
They're usually just do the same positions over and over and over again. They usually have no depth to their game whatsoever.
Yeah. Huh.
Can I take a piss real fast?
Yeah, I was going to ask if you want to take a break. Let's take a quick break. All right, and we're back. I think we both have been hydrated, so yeah. Cool. So tell everybody kind of what's next for you. Like what's on the horizon and how can people get in contact with you if they want to work with you?
Sure. So I've got a live event this Saturday, so it'll be December 2nd, here in San Diego. Just some personal growth stuff that I'm interested in with a partner of mine, and we're just looking to do we're bringing some free events just to bring some community together. Like I think it's really important that these type of growth conversations become more of a norm than than just reading books and trying to implement things by yourself. I think having community to do things is really important. There's a lot of people that read books and like self-improvement books and you can self-implement, right? But I don't get the feedback that I get from doing things in community.
Right.
And also like noticing myself in response with other people. Like, how do I get along with other people? How do I relate to other people? How do other people relate to me? I think that give and take and the conversation that's around you is very much going to affect how much you actually grow, shift, or change in a certain direction.
Yeah.
You know, if the name of the game is business, you want to be around guys that are making money, guys that are making more than you.
Yeah.
And how did they get where they're at? Right? Because the path to your first 6-figure year is different than your path to your first 7-figure year.
Yes.
And it's going to look different.
Yep.
And so that's really not dissimilar to any type of growth, evolution, whether a person's in a spiritual process or whatever. Yeah, we got to do our own work for sure. And also community is really important.
Right.
So developing some live events and really enjoying the process of doing that. I got some cool things coming up. And then pretty much just doing some one-on-one coaching right now for the most part. That's like the bulk of my work. And so if anybody wants to get in touch with me for one-on-one coaching, easiest thing to do, Eric the Gentleman on Instagram, shoot me a DM. I check them at least once a day. I check my inbox and see what's in there. So I respond to DMs. I respond to questions. Even if you just have a question and you don't want to give me any money, you can ask me a question and I'll usually answer them pretty promptly. I might even just leave a voice note. And I was so confused for so long and like, the way that I'm able to see the world now feels like such a gift to me. So if I can offer any type of perspective that's supportive to a person, that's really like, I enjoy that. You know, it's like a gift for me to be able to give that back. It's like this it can't all be about money. I like being paid nicely for what I do. And also I like sharing with people. I like being in community. You know,
Yeah.
It's really important to me.
Well, you're a man of service. Like it's very, very, very obvious that a big foundation of your life is giving to others. And I see it in the way that you show up, just from my perspective, you know, at jiu-jitsu. Like when you're an excellent jiu-jitsu coach, you meet people where they're at, right? You don't talk down to people. Like you are a servant of the people. And, yeah, I think that's really important too. And especially if you're doing something for money too, like the fact that you do so much for free and you're willing to talk with people and really like help people no matter what, you know, like that's really important. And I respect you a lot for that. So
thank you, man. Yeah. Well, to me, leadership is service, right? If you're in a leadership role, you're a servant.
Right.
I used to think that leader was where everybody just did things for me.
Yeah, you're being served. But
Yeah,
it's
being
not,
served,
right?
but it's not. Leadership is a service position.
Yeah, yeah. Like what's that book? Leaders Eat Last.
Yes, yeah, great book.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Well, Eric, thank you so much for coming on again. I think we're gonna have to do a third one eventually.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. And guys, seriously, if you're looking to take the leap into that next stage in your life and you're ready to do so, hit up Eric. Do you do any kind of group coaching?
That's coming very soon. I've done groups in the past. There will be some group coaching coming up very soon.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that I'm sure a lot of people would be interested in, and especially the one-on-one stuff, which we'll talk about. So
absolutely.
Cool. Eric, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.